update. Ten more seconds for people to settle down, and then we'll start. So this session is titled AL Amyloidosis Update, and I'm co-chairing this session with Kevin Boyd, colleague here. And I'm going to start with the first speaker for today. This session, Dr. Sriram Ravichandran. Dr. Sriram Ravichandran is a consultant hematologist at the National Amyloidosis Center and University College Hospitals. And Sriram's going to talk to us about updates in overall AL amyloid management for 2025. Sriram.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Karthik, for the introduction. So let's start with the updates. So what has changed in the last 5 years in AL amyloid? I mean, there have been some important changes. I think the biggest change so far has been the availability of daratumumab-based combinations for upfront management of AL amyloid. Can you hear me?
We stand behind the lectern.
Okay. Okay. No, I was just trying to look at my slides, just to remind myself. Okay, so the most important change, or the biggest change in the last 5 years has been the availability of daratumumab-based combinations and upfront treatment of amyloid. The other important changes has been mass spec is now established in the diagnosis, and we've done some work in using mass spec as a response assessment tool as well, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. There's been some renewed interest in using anti-amyloid antibodies in the last 5 years. There have been mixed results. We'll talk about this as well. There's obviously the advent of immunotherapies and bispecific antibodies, CAR-T, and finally there's been improving cardiac supportive care as well, which still requires a lot of work. So let's go through each one of them one by one. So in the diagnosis, mass spec is now currently the gold standard for diagnosing and typing amyloid type. We still, at the Amyloid Center, we're still using immunohistochemistry in a significant amount of patients, but we are increasingly using mass spec as well. Mass spec is very highly sensitive and specific. Using mass spec improves the accuracy of diagnosis by a significant, like we studied it, and our group showed that, it increases the sensitivity and accuracy from 76 to 95%. So mass spec is the gold standard. And it is now, so almost all hospitals are using mass spec. Now, we have recently produced a new staging system. So we've previously been using two staging systems, the Mayo 2012 and the European modification of the Mayo staging system, which was published in 2013. So previously it was Mayo's 2012 had stages 1 to 4, which had NT-proBNP, troponin, and DFLC as the components. And we had said any NT-proBNP over 8,500 was Mayo stage 3B, which had a pretty poor prognosis. Now we've recently, my colleague Dr. Khwaja has recently proposed a new staging system where we are incorporating the global longitudinal strain studied from echocardiographic parameters, and this is showing a very nice separation. So the blue line here. The blue line here is the one with Mayo stage 3C, where these are patients who've got NT-proBNP of over 8,500 and a global longitudinal strain of more than -9. So, and you can see that they have like a significantly worse prognosis of 7 months versus 26 months. So this has not yet been published, but this has been validated in an international cohort, and we are hoping to get it published soon. Now, the most important change in the last 5 years has been daratumumab. We've used, so daratumumab has been available for amyloid patients as upfront treatment on the NHS maybe in the last 18 months or so. It was available previously for patients with amyloid and myeloma, so we've used it in that cohort. And the Andromeda study, which was the study which led to the licensing of daratumumab, showed excellent response compared to VCD, both hematological and organ. We have reported our experience with using Dara VTD in 6 cycles of Dara VTD in patients, and we found an excellent response of 97%. Even in very advanced cases, Mayo Stage 3B, daratumumab seems to work very well. And the long-term follow-up is also very, very reassuring. I mean, with a median follow-up of, this is a study from China, which shows that with a median follow-up of 37 months, the median time to next treatment was was almost nearly 60 months, and the median OS was not reached. So this has obviously been the biggest change in managing AL amyloid in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, this is again, the speed of importance remains valuable or critical in managing, in assessing AL amyloid. Our group showed that patients who achieve a VGPR or about by 1 month tend to have an excellent response compared to those who do not achieve a VGPR by 1 month. And this applies across all Mayo stages. And those who do not achieve a VGPR by 3 months generally tend to do poorly. So now this was in a cohort which was treated with VCD. Dara VCD tends to, you get much deeper responses, much quicker responses. So it'll be interesting to see what these curves look like in a cohort of patients treated with Dara VCD. And we might be able to move this 1 month time frame even earlier, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 week. I mean, it depends. We need to see, we need to study it. Now, we've been looking at bone marrow MRD. This is a European-wide pan-European project, which we at the Amyloid Center did, and people who had positive MRD tended to have lesser organ responses and were at a higher risk of progression. So MRD negative patients, MRD positive patients, 25% of them had progressed at 1 year, compared to those who were MRD negative. So this is something that's being actively studying, that's actively under study. Now, the disease in amyloid is primarily being driven by the amyloidogenic light chain, and so the serologic MRD, or the identification of the amyloidogenic light chain in serum, might be a better marker to assess response than using bone marrow studies. This is a study from my colleague, Dr. Bomstick, who we studied over about 500 odd samples, where we did light chain mass spectrometry-based serologic assessment at 6 months and 12 months. And what we found was even patients who were technically in a CR by the standard criteria, a significant number were FLC MS positive. So, and these tended to do quite poorly. So you can see that the CR plus FLC MS negative, they had a significantly better survival compared to those who were MS positive. Now, this is not commercially available. This technique needs to be validated, and but compared to bone marrow MRD, this might be an easier method to assess response if we can validate it. Now, coming to the anti-amyloid antibodies, there were 2 anti-amyloid antibodies which were being studied. One was the KL antibody, and the other one was the NEOD, or the antibody. I'm sorry I'm using these names because I can't pronounce these 2 names. Now, the KL antibody, both of them have reported this year. The biratumumab, unfortunately, did not reach any of its pre-specified endpoints. So Prothena have discontinued development of this antibody. The anselicimab, it didn't reach its pre-specified endpoint, but it did show good benefit in a pre-specified group of patients. And I think the company is working on how it can take it forward. So that's where we are with the anti-amyloid antibodies. Now, what do we do with relapsed AL? Even though Dara VCD, we do get very, very good responses. About 40 to 50% of patients do not respond. Probably not 40 to 50%, but a small number of patients do not respond, and a lot of patients do relapse. So what do we do with these relapsed AL? So our options are carfilzomib, belantamab, teclistamab, elrantamab, CAR-T, venetoclax, and IMiDs. Now, I'm not going to talk much about IMiDs and venetoclax. IMiDs are very well known. Venetoclax is not available to most of us here in this room, so I'll be primarily focusing on the others. So we looked at, we did a phase 1 dose escalation study of carfilzomib, thalidomide, dexamethasone, and we found that a dose of 45 milligrams per meter square weekly was well tolerated. Carfilzomib invariably will lead to a spike in your, or a spike in the serum creatinine, which usually tends to get better over a period of time. But it is, and the overall response rate was quite good at about 60%. We've used belantamab as a single agent in over 30 patients in our center. This was again reported by Dr. Khwaja, and the overall response rate was quite good at about 71%. 58% had CR and VGPR. Now, a significant majority did have keratopathy, and some of them had grade 2 or 3, and we had to obviously discontinue doses. In most of these patients, we've been using it every 6 weeks, the belantamab, starting at 2.5, reducing it to 1.9. But it has shown good promise in these patients. Now, teclistamab, there's not much published literature. These are the two papers that I could find. Excellent responses, nearly 90% plus VGPR or CR rates. Nearly 50% will have a degree of cytokine release. Most of the times it's grade 1, grade 2. And infections are very, very common. So we've treated maybe about 6 or 7 patients with AL and teclistamab at UCLH. And we found pretty much a similar experience. Very deep responses. Infections are a big issue, so we've been using IVIG prophylaxis in all these patients. In the sickest patients, we do use prophylactic tocilizumab to manage the CRS. Now, this is another study looking at elrantamab, which looked at 9 patients who were dosed, and excellent CR, excellent response rates, similar CRS profile. Similar ICANS profile and similar infection profile. So there's no head-to-head comparison between these two agents. Now, this is a study of this is a chart of some upcoming studies using BiTEs. We've got teclistamab, which is being studied. There's the ABBY 383 trial. The LINCO trial is ongoing at our center, and then elrantamab is being studied again in relapsed refractory AL. Now, there's again no licensed CAR at the moment for AL amyloid. There was a recent publication in the ASCO conference which they looked at. This was the top one, I think. I would say, yeah, this was the one where those 7 patients, all of them had hematologic response and MRD negative, so excellent response and manageable cytokine release profile. There is another CAR from Alexion, which is the Alacrity, I want to say. It's a dual CD19 and BCMA CAR. We've got another CAR study, which we are currently recruiting at UCH, which has been run by Liddy Lee. So there's lots of activity going on with regards to CAR in AL. And finally, just a footnote about managing heart failure in AL. Diuretics and mineralocorticoid antagonists remain the backbone of our heart failure management. Patients with AL do not tolerate ACE inhibitors or ARB blockers and beta blockers, so we rarely use them. We've been using SGLT2 inhibitors more often in patients. We've written up our experience of it. We find that it's very well tolerated. The commonest reason for discontinuing SGLT2 is a bit of hypertension. Urinary tract infections do happen, but not to an extent that we need to discontinue it. But efficacy is. The numbers were too low for us to make any comment on efficacy of it. So I think more studies are needed with it. Obviously, we need more studies as well to see, okay, like cardiac resynchronization, how do you manage arrhythmia? So that's all still out in the open. But yes, heart failure management still remains quite challenging in these patients. Now, these are some studies that we've been at UCH, which we are currently recruiting for or are proposed. So we've got the ALARIC, which is the CAR-T study. which is a phase which we are currently recruiting for. I think we've recruited maybe a few patients. The LINCA AL is another study which we are recruiting, and it's currently closed for recruitment, but we expect to open recruitment in the first quarter of 2026. Alacrity is the Alexion study with the dual CD19 BCMA CAR, which we are hoping to recruit in the first quarter. Alanus is a study, phase 2 study of Bela-BCD in newly diagnosed AL, again, which we are hoping to open in Q1. And the Kedrion is a phase 3 study of factor 10 concentrate, Quagodex, in acquired factor 10 deficiency in AL. We've just had the SIV, and we're hoping to start recruiting patients soon into this. So if you've got any patients who might be suitable for this study, please feel free to refer to us. And finally, I just want to acknowledge all my colleagues at University College Hospital and the National Amyloidosis Center. A lot of the work which I presented here has been done by them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take